Good morning, YouTube, or afternoon, whatever it may be for you. This video is entitled How Much Money You Can Make Doing an Aircraft Maintenance Side Hustle. And the thumbnail is probably somewhat clickbaity, respectfully. I did like a lot of other channels where they throw some ridiculous, like just unattainable number out there. But I'm going to be very real with you. I'm going to break down some of the costs and what you can actually expect to make if you're doing aircraft maintenance off the tailgate of your truck or on the side. So please, stick around. So I am doing a annual inspection on this 172 you see behind me, and that brings me to the very first point of running a side business. It is about 6 o'clock in the morning. I was here at 5 o'clock in the morning yesterday, and I have to go to teach my class at the infamous 147 school, actually I guess famous 147 school that I work at noon. So I will only be here till about 10:30. And the point of me saying that is I find myself, when I get really busy, like I have been the past couple of weeks, putting projects where I can squeeze them in and working very long days. By the time I get home, or really by the time I get out of my class, it'll be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So yesterday was an 11-hour day. Today will be a 10-hour day. That's if I don't come back this evening after I'm done at my day job working. And then I'm waiting on parts for this thing because it needs tires, brakes, pads, and also bearings. So that's kind of interesting how that worked out. So I'm waiting on those to get here, and they're probably not going to be here tomorrow. So I'm going to be working on Saturday as well. And the first thing I want to discuss is a realistic labor rate. So on average, most general aviation A&P IAs and just A&Ps are charging $100 an hour. If you go to certain shops that specialize in things like maybe avionics or engine overhaul, they may charge a little bit more. They may charge up to $125. I've even seen guys less at $80 or $60 an hour. I don't know that I would go as low as $60 an hour. I just don't see how you can make a whole lot of money at that cost, but some people do it. So we're gonna assume $100 an hour for this video. And I already did the math on this, but if you did $100 an hour at 40 hours of labor a week, that would come out to $208,000. And that's probably what I put in the thumbnail, $208,000. But the truth is, running a side hustle, you're not going to be doing this full-time a week. And even if you were doing this full-time every single week, you're not going to bill 40 hours of labor unless you've got 2 mechanics there. And I know this from experience because I used to work in a general aviation maintenance shop. Realistically and truthfully, you will probably bill about 30 hours of labor every single week because the other 10 get swallowed up by brakes, it gets swallowed up by cleaning the hangar, it gets swallowed up by opening and closing the doors at the beginning and the end of the day. So very quickly, your labor rate goes from 40 hours down to 30 hours, and you just went from 208,000 down to about 156,000, if I remember, if I did the math right, which is still a pretty good lick as an income. I'm not gonna lie, that's really good money. But in order to make that kind of money, you probably need an IA. Without an IA, I just don't know that you'd be able to pull that much labor. I'm gonna raise y'all up just a little bit because I'm having a squat. There we go. Without an IA, I just don't know that you'd have that kind of business because a lot of what I get is annual inspections, and annual inspections are charged at a flat rate. I've discussed my prices and like other people's prices in another video, but they're always charged at a flat rate, and then you're billed to fix whatever I find wrong. So you actually don't make a whole lot of money on an annual inspection, especially once you consider the amount of consumables that go into this: cotter pins, brakes, wheel bearings, cotter pins, brakes, words are hard, cotter pins, wheel bearing grease, lubrication, safety wire, all those sort of consumable, spark plug gaskets and cleaners, all those sort of consumable items that I'm not really using. So I've been doing this, to give you a real expectation, I've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years. When I started at the 147 school, a couple people reached out to me and said, hey, would you help me with an annual? And just for the sake of keeping my IA current and keeping my skills fresh, I said yes. And I was really only doing about 3 to 4 annuals a year, which for me was fine. It was a couple extra $1,000s that I was able to go on vacation with, that I was able to buy my wife jewelry with, that I was able to do things with. But things started growing, and I've discussed this in other videos. My buddy Lyle texted me and asked if I could help him put his 172 back together. And I said yes, and that's really when my side business took off, was putting the 172 back together. And the reason it took off is because I was at the airport almost every single weekend for about an 8-month period. And if I wasn't at the airport on the weekend, I was usually there during the week at some point. When I had a week off of work, I was there when I was on my week off of work. and I put about 200 hours of labor at $100 an hour into that Cessna 172 to get it back together. And I'm actually lying to you. I put a lot more than 200 hours into it, but I only billed the owner for 200 hours because I didn't feel right about charging a whole bunch of extra money for like figuring out a camera or for, you know, figuring out all the little problems as I put things back together. But that's all kind of besides the point. But just being at the airport, the amount of people that came over and started talking to me, because people at airports are very friendly, said, hey, how you doing? I said, oh, I'm doing good. How do you do today? What's your name? I'm Bryce. Well, I'm such and such. Hi, I have a 172. What do you do? Oh, well, I'm an aircraft mechanic. And the first question is, are you an IA? And my first answer is, indeed I am. And they say, well, do I have news for you? I need an annual. And I say, okay. And very quickly, I started picking up clients, and I went from 3 clients to about 12 to 15 clients. And I don't know that I really want to grow any more than that, because as it is, I work 2 to 3 weekends every single month. I've got a couple of friends with really big projects, and you know, I spend so much time away from my family. Yes, the money is nice, but I'm not at home that often. I'm usually at an airport on a Saturday. I always take Sundays off so that I can at least go to church with the family. That's like been my one thing. As I've said, you know, I drew a line in the sand. I said, I'm taking Sundays off. I will not work a Sunday. I have a buddy named Mark that does that. He's an incredible aircraft mechanic in IA, and he does that. If you call him on Sunday, he's not even going to answer his phone on a Sunday. It is truly a day off for him. And I said, you know what? I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to adopt that. I'm not working 7 days a week, every single week, week in and week out, because I did when I was working on the Cessna 172. And I remember there was a period of almost 14 to 15 weeks where I did not have a day off. And at the school, it's very demanding. I work 10 to 12 hour days at the school every day. I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm there by 6, and I don't leave till 5. It's very, very invasive. Sometimes I teach night classes, or I have taught night classes, and those are even worse, because then I get up really early in the morning, and I have to be there at like 10, and I'm there till 10 o'clock at night, and it's rough. But this is not a poor me. This is not a boohoo. I wouldn't trade this for the world. So truthfully to you, if you're working, let's say 2 weekends a year, and you are able to average 10 hours, or you're able to average, I'd say, 8 hours each of those weekends, that puts you at 16 hours a month times $100 an hour times 12 months. You could make an additional $20,000, but it depends on if you're actually that busy. You may have periods, it happens to me, you may have periods where you go several months without a single thing to do, and then you have a whole bunch of people calling you because their annuals are all due in July and August, and you hate yourself because it's Texas, it's 106 degrees. Just putting that out there. But the point is, realistically, I think as a side hustle, if you're really busy, if you're a really personable guy, and you stay in contact with your owners and you have large projects, you can make between $15,000 and $20,000 a year extra, but I wouldn't expect that to happen in your first year, your second year, or your third year. I would expect to be somewhere more down around the $4,000 to $5,000 range. Maybe after a couple years, you'll get up to $10,000. When you break $10,000, you're going to feel just incredible about yourself, as you should. It's a tremendous milestone for any small business, especially one that's a side hustle, in my opinion. But you're not going to go out and you're not going to make an additional 6 figures. You're not going to replace another income, or you're not going to earn a second income doing this as a side business. And I'm not going to call it a side hustle for me anymore, because it's not a side hustle. It is truly a side business. I have a lot of business costs that come with this. I have tool calibrations. I have manuals, libraries that I have to keep. I have consumable items that I have to keep, and all of that stuff, I did add it up. All of that stuff comes out to about an additional $2,000 a year. Just the tool calibrations is like $800 to get all of my tools calibrated on a yearly basis, which they have to be as an aircraft mechanic. You cannot just go grab a torque wrench at Harbor Freight and call it good. It has to be calibrated. You can grab a torque wrench at Harbor Freight, don't get me wrong, but you have to calibrate that torque wrench. And the cost of the tools themselves, they're not cheap. Wheel bearing grease for this is $100 for the can of wheel bearing grease. You know, cotter pins are like $1 each. They're not cheap, and these are things that I don't charge the owner for. I could itemize every single one of those things on every single inspection and charge every single owner for it, but I don't want to. I would rather just, here's the cost for the annual. It's a flat rate. You pay it. It includes all those things. You provide the oil and the filter, the air filter, and all that, and we call it even. So that's exactly what I do. So there you go, guys. I hope that was helpful. I'm now going to start working on the airplane. I might record some of that so that I can pepper it in through as cutaways throughout the video. If you thought it was entertaining, if you thought it was informative, make sure you leave me a like, leave me a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm going to go ahead and try to get this inspection wrapped up today so that all I have to do is fix discrepancies tomorrow, and sign this thing off as airworthy because it is a flight school airplane. So thank you so much for watching. Go build something and be